Well, Sam, despite the loss at Twickenham, obviously, you seem to be enjoying moments at the big stadium.
Yeah, it was good to be back there. It's an unbelievable place to play. I think as a kid growing up playing rugby in England, this is sort of the place you want to play. You want to play for England at Twickenham, and there's always a phenomenal crowd and an atmosphere and stuff. So yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Having a worldie of a try chalked off like that, is it something that you take a while to get over? Can you let it go?
I've let it go. I think I probably won't ever do that again. Probably could have done with it. I haven't scored in a few years, but yeah, I'm well over it now.
Yeah. For the greater good of the team, is that the way that we look at these things now?
Oh, mate, it happens, doesn't it? Like you get, probably happens in most games you see now with the TMO and the technology that's available. And to be fair, it makes it a fairer game, doesn't it? It makes it a more accurate game and helps out if the officials miss something. So it's definitely a good thing.
Yeah, a few articles this week have said that topping the tackle count, the metres made, that moment of brilliance has put you on the world map. It's just another day at the office, right?
Yeah, I don't think you get too carried away with stuff like this. It was. I thought it was a fairly good game for myself, but the key for me is whether I can do it again. Do you know what I mean? I want to make that my benchmark. So, and as a player, I think you always want to, be consistently good. I think if you have a good game, you want to have a better game next week, and so for me, that's the challenge, I think.
Yeah, how tricky is that balance of looking at next job and maintaining that, but also wanting to have a moment to enjoy it?
Yeah, I think it's important to enjoy stuff. Don't get me wrong. I think like you've got the weekend when you normally have a game, you play on a Saturday. You've got the Saturday, you can enjoy it on a Sunday. Spent time with my family this weekend, so it was good to sort of enjoy what happened and enjoy the occasion. But I think as soon as you get into training again and previewing again, then you've got to be there. You've got to be focused on the next job in hand. So it's probably a fairly good guide as to when you should be focused. If you're prepping for Japan this week, you're focused on that entirely, and you've let last week go.
Sundays are the glory days then.
Something like that can be.
Being able to make those hits, make those runs, a sign that you're obviously in fine fettle. How long does it take for the body to feel normal after big bruising encounters like that?
It's hard to say. Like depends on the game, depends on the involvements, depends on your recovery as well. But I'd say normally a couple of days would be about right. I don't think you ever, as a player, if you're playing throughout the season, your body's probably just probably about 90% the whole time. I don't think you ever really get, if you have a couple of weeks off, or you get some, probably you get a knock or an injury and you're out for a couple of weeks, you probably come back a bit fresher. But I don't think I think the trick is probably learning to deal with your body when it's not 100%, when you have got a bit of a bang from the weekend and you've got to get up for another training session. Yeah,
you're just 22, you've had a couple of concussion injuries, you had the toe tendon injury as well. How do you cope when you're not able to play?
Pretty badly, I think. I think it's a part of the sport for sure. Like I think you'd be incredibly lucky as a professional now to avoid injury throughout your career. I think it wouldn't happen. I think the support around injuries is getting a lot better. I think mental health is something that's come to the fore socially, sort of, in a more general terms, but also in terms of sport, because you got the highs of the amount of emotionally, the emotional toll sport takes, and the highs you go through, and then probably the lows of injury. I think it's important that we recognise that injuries are, can be pretty dark, can be pretty challenging. But I think clubs are getting significantly better at that. I think having the team culture is definitely a good thing, and I think it's no longer a stigma around manning up and just getting on with it. I think it's all right for now for guys to be fairly open about how they're feeling.
Yeah, those lift the weight campaigns, that sort of thing, tend to help, don't they? Is seeing a method of coping something that you see in perhaps senior players, or while other teammates are off injured, you see how they deal with it?
Yeah, I think everyone's different. I think acknowledging that you're injured probably is the biggest thing. Do you know what I mean? Because you can't do what you were doing when you were fit and playing. So probably it's important to take a little bit of a step back, I guess, rather than just you burn out if you're too eager to get back. Do you know what I mean? You need to give yourself time for your body to get right and to do your rehab and stuff. And I think mentally as well, it's good to switch off a little bit and to not from your rehab, but take some time away and refresh, so that when you get back, you're really into it.
Yeah, what do you like as a patient? Netflix? Do you watch rugby, or do you take yourself away from that as well?
I try and watch it. When I can. If Bath are playing and I was injured, I'd always watch it. But yeah, just different things. You try to take up a hobby or something, or you just try, just get in town with a coffee with the lads. And I think everyone's different in how they do things, but it's important for sure.
Yeah, and what's the balance like these days? Obviously, you've got to do your rehab work, you've got to do your training, your strength and conditioning, and the weights, and then the physical sessions. Before you're actually playing the games. The balance on preventing those injuries versus being fit to play. There's obviously a balance of the work you've got to do on your body to suit both things, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. I think in the season, clubs are pretty good. S&Cs are pretty good at managing. I think they can be one and the same a little bit. The strength work and stuff you do, if it's functional, can be preventative in terms of injuries. But I think a lot of it's about players knowing their own bodies. The most professional guys are also the guys that tend to look after themselves better. The guys that get to 100 club caps or whatever, normally there's a reason. They're looking after their bodies well, and they know what they need to do off the field.
Going back then to this autumn series, just that game against New Zealand, it looked to me like you took your opportunity. Did it feel like that to you?
Yeah, I was fairly happy with how the game went. I was obviously fairly nervous going into it, but I am before every game. But I was, I think as a team we did certainly in parts what we wanted to do. And I think that's because individually, guys were doing what they said they wanted to do, and so I think we went fairly well from that point of view. I think where we can improve is just being more consistent and doing that for the whole 80 rather than just in patches.
And finally, from a personal point of view, if given the chance to play against Japan and Australia to conclude this autumn series, a chance to show other sides of your game, you could come up against a back row against Australia who love that jackal side of the game, and we've seen your tackles, we've seen your runs, so a chance to see a bit more of that as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think I think stylistically the way we want to play is fairly obvious. I think in terms of team stuff we won't try and veer away from that too much. I think it might change slightly depending on how the opposition play. But I think in general what we're looking for is consistency from ourselves and how we play and imposing our game rather than pandering to someone else's.